Brittany used to laugh with her whole body. That kind of laugh that made strangers glance over in restaurants, the kind that made you feel like life wasn't so bad after all. That's what drew Matt to her when they met, her lightness, her energy, her way of making everyday things feel spontaneous and important. He remembered watching her dance barefoot in their old kitchen with her hair in a messy bun and a slice of pizza in hand, talking about how fitness is 80% mental. It started shifting slowly. At first, it was just more time in front of the mirror. Then came the clean eating phase, then the protein shakes, and then the gym obsession. Brittany claimed she was working on herself. The words came with that same disarming smile she always had, but it didn't land the same. Something about it felt like a line she practiced. 5 nights a week, she'd change into leggings and those sleek cross-trainers she insisted were worth the money, give him a distracted kiss on the cheek, and head out the door, water bottle in hand. At first, Matt admired her discipline. But admiration turned into unease. He never said anything right away. Maybe he didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband. Still, something gnawed at the back of his mind. It wasn't anything specific. Just little things. Her gym bag always seemed untouched, like she'd thrown it together more for show than function. Her sports bras were clean too often. Her sneakers still had the new sole look even after weeks of supposed workouts. The car was another thing. No sweat towel, no Gatorade bottles. Just empty coffee cups and, strangely enough, a scent that didn't smell like her perfume or the gym. Something off. Cologne maybe. One night, after she left for one of her hour-and-a-half sessions, Matt checked the GPS history on their shared car app. Just out of curiosity. Or so he told himself. Her destination wasn't the gym. Not once. Over the course of the last 3 weeks, not a single trip showed up with the gym's address or even anything nearby. Instead, she had been making regular visits to the same residential address across town. Not just once or twice, every night she claimed to be at the gym. At first, he told himself it had to be a glitch. He even called the GPS support line, blaming missing trips. But no, everything was functioning perfectly. Data logged clean. The address kept coming up, like a bad dream he couldn't wake from. He didn't say anything that night. Or the next. He just watched. Monitored. Measured the gaps in her stories like he was studying for a test. On Thursday morning, while she was still singing in the shower, he retrieved the tiny white disc from his desk drawer, an Apple AirTag he'd bought a year ago to keep track of their luggage during vacation. With precise fingers and a stomach full of concrete, he slipped it into the lining of the spare tire compartment in her trunk. She never noticed. That night, while Brittany was supposedly sweating it out on a treadmill, Matt sat in his car, watching her little AirTag move across the map. Sure enough, she drove straight to that same house. He zoomed in, looked at the neighborhood. A nice area. Generic. 2-car garage, a few trees. No gym in sight. For the first 20 minutes, he stared at the blinking dip, unsure if he should drive there himself. But something told him not to, at least not yet. He waited. Watched the timer on his phone. An hour and 15 minutes passed. Then an hour and a half. Still parked. Finally, just as the clock hit the 2-hour mark, he drove out, not to the house, but to a parking lot nearby. He parked far enough to be out of sight but close enough to recognize the SUV. Her SUV. Parked right there, outside the same tan-colored house with the blue recycling bin tipped over in the driveway. It felt surreal. He pulled out his phone and snapped a photo. The edges of the frame shook. He steadied his hand and took another. That night, from his car, he opened his messages, attached the photo, and typed a single sentence. She didn't reply. Not immediately. But she saw it, read receipt confirmed. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Still nothing. An hour later, her phone went dark. She didn't come home. Matt sat in silence in the dim light of the dashboard, processing what that meant. Not just that she had lied. Not just that she was with another man. But that, when faced with the truth, her instinct wasn't to apologize, or even deny it, it was to vanish. That night, he slept in the guest room. Not because she asked him to. She never returned. The bed felt bigger than usual. Emptier. He stared at the ceiling, mind racing through years of conversations, every "I love you," every time she said she just needed space or wanted to be a better version of herself. He thought about how often he defended her to friends when she blew off group dinners, about how he bought her a new Fitbit when hers stopped working, never realizing she'd stopped going to the gym entirely. He thought about all the times she had come home sore. And then he realized something even worse. She hadn't just been lying. She'd been acting. Playing a part. Crafting a daily illusion, complete with the right clothes, the right tone, the right casual complaints about post-workout muscle aches. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a performance. A role she stepped into every evening, knowing Matt was home, probably cooking, waiting, loving her. Somewhere across town, her car was still parked outside that house. By morning, it was gone. But so was she. Matt didn't cry. He didn't throw anything or scream into a pillow. There were no theatrics. He just sat there, on the same couch they used to cuddle on during movie nights, staring blankly at the wall across from him. The silence was oppressive, thicker than any argument they'd ever had. Her absence filled the house like a fog, settling into every corner. Even the air smelled different without her cheap grapefruit body spray. And still, it felt like she was everywhere. The TV remote lay untouched. Her coffee mug was still by the sink. But Brittany? Gone. 2 hours after he'd sent the photo, her name lit up on his phone. One message. Short. Defensive. No apology. No shame. It was the kind of response that pretended to open a door but didn't even touch the handle. She never followed up. Never came home. And in those quiet hours that followed, Matt realized something that cracked his chest wide open: she had already made her choice long before he caught her. That night, he didn't sleep. He lay on his back in their bed, his bed now, it seemed, staring at the ceiling fan blades as they circled in slow, rhythmic betrayal. His mind replayed everything. Every weird look she'd given him. Every time she got home late and shrugged it off. Every joke about personal growth that now felt like foreshadowing in a badly written play. He combed through months of memories, searching for signs, warning lights he'd ignored. By morning, she still hadn't come home. Day 2 felt even worse. Her toothbrush was still in the cup. Her necklace, one he bought her for their 3rd anniversary, was still on the dresser. But she was gone, like someone had cut her out of the photo of his life with scissors and left the jagged outline behind. The call came in around noon. Her name didn't flash on the screen, it was Lindsay. Brittany's best friend. One of the few people Matt had trusted in her orbit. He debated answering, but curiosity outweighed his pride. The voice on the other end sounded awkward, uncertain. She spoke like someone handling a delicate object, careful not to break it, but already knowing it was cracked. Turns out, Brittany had been staying with a man named Tyler. Not a family member. Not a hotel. A man. A fitness trainer. Someone she'd met at the gym, Lindsay had said, like it made sense. And just like that, all the missing puzzle pieces clicked into place. Tyler. Of course. He should have guessed it. The sudden interest in CrossFit. The branded gear she never used. The little moments she mentioned, "My trainer said this," or "My coach does that," always with a quick deflection when he asked questions. He thought she was just being trendy. Health conscious. Focused. Turns out, she wasn't focusing on herself, she was focusing on someone else's attention. Matt sat on the edge of the bed, phone still in hand long after the call ended. He stared at the floor, the truth spreading through his body like cold water. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a campaign. A calculated, sustained performance of lies wrapped in leggings and motivational quotes. He thought back to the mornings when she left protein shake bottles in the sink, barely touched. Or how she started skipping dinner to cut carbs, but somehow had enough energy to train 4 hours. All the nights he waited with warm food going cold. All the effort he made to support her new lifestyle, the gym membership, the gear, the blender she insisted she needed. The blender. That stupid, high-powered thing she used maybe 3 times before it became a permanent fixture on the counter, untouched. And yet, he defended her. To his buddies. To his family. Even to himself. He blamed himself for the distance. Told himself he should be more supportive, more in shape, more emotionally available. But the truth was simpler. She didn't want to grow with him, she wanted to grow away from him. Outgrow him, really. And somewhere along the way, she'd convinced herself that intimacy was a reward he no longer deserved. Her insults came back to him now, cloaked in the language of self-help but sharpened like knives. The way she called him comfortable, like it was a disease. How she rolled her eyes when he suggested a vacation. How she once joked, that he was still living in 2018. He had smiled at the time. Shrugged it off. He didn't laugh now. In hindsight, the signs weren't subtle. They were blinding. He just didn't want to see them. Love has a way of softening sharp edges, but now that it had been stripped away, all Matt could see were corners and cracks. By that night, her side of the bed remained untouched. Even her pillow still had the imprint of the last time she laid her head there. He thought about tossing it, burning it even, but he just left it. Staring at it hurt, but erasing it felt worse. What stung most wasn't just the betrayal. It was how casually she had walked away. How rehearsed her escape seemed. Like she had been waiting for him to find out so she could stop pretending. He remembered how, just a week earlier, she had scrolled through real estate listings, just to see what's out there. He thought it was playful curiosity. Maybe she had already been planning a new life, with Tyler. Matt didn't even know what Tyler looked like, but he pictured him anyway. Chiseled. Tan. Overly confident. The kind of guy who wore tank tops to brunch. A man who thrived on admiration. The exact opposite of Matt, who worked a quiet job in finance and kept his emotions mostly to himself. He didn't envy Tyler. If anything, he pitied him. Because sooner or later, Brittany would turn her empty promises and fake smiles in his direction too. That's who she was now, someone who didn't confront problems, just swapped out people until the lie felt fresh again. Matt checked the GPS one more time, out of habit. Her car was still parked in the same spot. Same house. Same choice. He powered off the app. Not out of defeat, but because he finally understood something, he didn't need confirmation anymore. She'd already told him everything with her silence. And he heard it loud and clear. Matt didn't spiral. No breakdowns, no angry texts sent at 2 a.m. He didn't slash her tires or show up at Tyler's house ready to throw punches. Instead, he did what years of quiet discipline had taught him, he planned. It started with a phone call. A number saved from a colleague's bachelor party years ago, when one of the groomsmen had hired a PI to trail his cheating ex. At the time, it had been a wild story told over bourbon and cigar smoke. Now, it was the first breadcrumb on Matt's path to the truth. The investigator was clean. Professional. Wore glasses with matte frames and had a face that didn't reveal a single thing it was thinking. That was what Matt wanted. No judgments. No sympathy. Just the facts. And within days, the facts came pouring in like floodwater. Brittany wasn't just sneaking around. She had built an entirely new identity. One where she wasn't married, didn't have a husband who helped her through her grad school years, or a man who built their backyard deck by hand. In this new version of her life, Brittany was a recently divorced woman, starting over, hitting the gym to heal and, finally find herself. She wasn't just sleeping with Tyler. She was dating him. Publicly. Brazenly. Photos came in, pictures of them at brunch, her laughing in his passenger seat, leaning into him like they'd known each other forever. They had inside jokes. Rituals. Even a weekend trip to a cabin 2 towns over. She wore the same scarf Matt had gotten her in Vermont. That scarf had seen snowfall with him, wrapped around her neck as they shared hot cocoa in a cabin he thought meant something. He couldn't believe how effortless it had been for her to create this parallel world, like their life together was just a placeholder she could discard the moment she got bored. She hadn't just stepped out, she had started over. With a clean slate. A clean lie. And Tyler? The man had no idea. He was under the impression Brittany had been separated for months. She'd even fed him lines about how her ex was controlling, how she was trying to distance herself from a toxic past. Matt read those words in screenshots the investigator retrieved. Toxic. The same man who paid the mortgage, cleaned up after her dog, and sat through her cousin's 8-hour wedding slideshow. Matt stared at the evidence in silence, letting each page weigh heavier than the last. There was something dehumanizing about seeing your life reduced to a file folder. Dates. Times. License plate numbers. Images. His wife's betrayal, catalogued like evidence in a courtroom. But in a way, it was clarifying. There was no more ambiguity, no more benefit of the doubt. Just truth, cold and sharp. Still, he wasn't interested in revenge for the sake of revenge. That would be easy. Screaming matches, dramatic confrontations, anyone could do that. What he wanted was precision. For Brittany to feel the weight of every single decision she made. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Slowly. Inevitably. So he mapped it out. Step 1, he gathered everything, digital copies, hard copies, timestamped data. Enough evidence to make it impossible for her to weasel out with one of her signature half-truths. The goal wasn't to ruin her. The goal was to make her ruin herself. Step 2, he planted seeds. Quiet ones. He started with social media, subtle changes. Removed her last name from his profile. Archived old anniversary posts. Unfollowed her friends, one by one. Brittany was obsessed with image. The second she noticed her reflection in his world beginning to disappear, she'd feel the chill. Then came the gym. The same place she pretended to visit every weeknight. Matt didn't post anything directly. That would have been crude. Instead, he submitted an anonymous tip to the gym's HR department. Posed as a concerned friend. Suggested they check their code of conduct regarding trainers dating clients, especially those they weren't supposed to be training in the first place. It wasn't a violation of privacy. It was a nudge. One that could crack open her curated world, just enough. Step 3, the photo. He waited a week after her initial disappearance before sending it. The same one from that night, her SUV parked in Tyler's driveway. He chose his timing carefully, late on a Wednesday, when she'd usually be home scrolling through her phone and sipping herbal tea. The message said everything it needed to. After that, Matt went silent. No calls. No texts. No confrontation. And in that silence, Brittany began to panic. He knew it. He could imagine it, her pacing, waiting for him to lash out so she could play the victim. But when the retaliation didn't come, when the house stayed locked and her phone stayed cold, she'd feel the truth begin to close in. He made sure of it. He sent a second envelope, this time to Tyler. No return address. No message. Just a series of printed screenshots and GPS logs. A gentle dismantling of Brittany's lie. The next part was almost poetic. Her friends, mutuals, began calling him. Not directly about Brittany, but with questions. Vague ones. One even asked if he was okay. Another wanted to grab coffee. He could hear it in their voices, the shift. They knew. Or were beginning to know. Which meant she was slipping. Matt didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence spoke louder than any explanation could. What Brittany never understood was that trust isn't something you can rebuild with apologies and good intentions. It's built over time, and shattered in a moment. And now, the very thing she took for granted, his steadiness, had become the weapon she didn't know how to defend against. He wasn't coming for her with rage. He was letting the truth do the work. Every lie she told, every story she spun, would now begin to unravel from the inside out. And she'd be left standing in the middle of it all, exposed. Not because Matt destroyed her. But because she did it to herself. Matt had never been the vengeful type. He wasn't interested in public scenes or messy confrontations. But there's a certain kind of silence that makes noise all by itself, cold, exact, and impossible to ignore. That was the kind of message he wanted to send. Not a scream, not a punch. Just the unflinching presence of the truth, handed over like a mirror to those who had been too comfortable lying to themselves. He spent 3 evenings putting everything together, carefully, methodically. GPS logs, printouts of locations with timestamps that matched her fake gym visits. Screenshots of Brittany's texts with Tyler, which he'd quietly accessed through her iCloud months earlier when she asked him to reset her Apple ID and never changed the password. Her words were right there, preserved in digital ink, declarations of freedom, bitterness about her controlling ex, full-on fantasies about the life she claimed she deserved. She had rewritten their story like she was the protagonist escaping something unbearable. He wasn't a husband anymore in her world, he was a cautionary tale. Matt printed it all. He bought a plain manila envelope, stuffed it with the evidence, and sealed it shut. No return address. No warning. Just a note clipped to the top page. Simple. A quiet nudge to a man who had no idea he was the other half of a lie. He dropped it in a mailbox 3 blocks away from home. Not out of fear, but to keep the distance symbolic. He wasn't acting from the place of a heartbroken husband. He was doing what needed to be done. And that made every step feel weightless. He waited. 2 days later, the ripple began. Tyler's Instagram account went silent. His gym profile, previously full of smiling selfies and inspirational quotes, was scrubbed clean. The mutual trainer fangirls who usually flooded his comments disappeared. Someone posted a screenshot of a confrontation from the gym parking lot. No one tagged anyone directly, but people knew. Word spreads fast in fitness communities. Especially when one of their own turns out to be dating a woman who lied about being single. Matt didn't post anything himself. But he'd submitted a tip to the gym's internal ethics board. Again, anonymous. Just a screen name and a pointed question about whether the gym's code of conduct had any stance on trainers having relationships with clients, especially ones who were involved in messy personal lives that could reflect poorly on the business. The gym prided itself on professional integrity, he used their own words. From there, the fire spread. Brittany's boss, who followed the gym's community page, saw the drama unfold in real time. Turns out, the client Tyler had been training, and sleeping with, was also connected to a business partner of Brittany's firm. Word reached HR within 48 hours. Someone pulled up a photo from a recent retreat where Tyler had shown up as Brittany's friend. Another staffer remembered seeing her engagement ring missing one day and then mysteriously back the next. Her carefully polished image cracked. Her company had built its brand around authenticity and women's empowerment. There was no room for someone whose personal scandal was making clients uncomfortable. The call came from HR. Her employment ended less than 10 minutes later. Matt didn't celebrate. He just watched it happen from a distance, sipping black coffee and reading the gym's now-deleted thread like it was a weather report. The real storm, though, was still coming. He sent out 3 invitations. Brittany's mother. Her younger sister. And a casserole dish in the oven, just to keep things feeling casual. When they arrived, he greeted them like everything was fine. Small talk, light laughs. He poured the wine Brittany used to keep on the top shelf, the one labeled for special occasions. They thought it was a reunion. A patch-up moment. A peace offering after the rough patch. Matt waited until the table was set, until the wine had been poured and their guard had softened. Then he placed the second manila envelope on the center of the table. Nothing dramatic. No introduction. Just a firm, deliberate motion. Inside were the same documents. Different order. A few more personal photos. A glimpse into the life Brittany had built behind their backs. He didn't have to say a word. He watched as her sister flipped through the pages, her face changing expression with every line. Her mother sat rigid, reading in slow motion, like her eyes couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. The room fell into a silence that felt both electric and heavy. There was no defending this. No spin. Just the cold, ugly reality that the woman they had defended so many times, the daughter they assumed was the victim of a drifting husband, had been lying to everyone. Matt didn't need an apology. Or an outburst. The silence itself was more satisfying than any confrontation could have been. He cleared the plates in silence. Let them sit with it. Later that night, Brittany finally reached out. A series of messages flooded in, long, winding paragraphs alternating between anger, guilt, deflection, and nostalgia. She wasn't sorry, not really. She was sorry she'd been caught, sorry that Matt had outplayed her at her own game. She tried to rewrite the narrative again. Claimed he was being cruel. That this wasn't fair. But Matt didn't respond. The trap had already closed. She was cornered not by his hand, but by the weight of her own actions. Her world was collapsing inward, not in one violent crash, but in slow motion, one layer at a time. The job. The relationship. The image she tried to craft. All of it, slipping through her fingers. Not because Matt exposed her. Because he stopped protecting her from herself. Matt never saw her again, not in person. Brittany became a digital ghost. She didn't return to the house, didn't try to face him, didn't knock on the door with tears in her eyes and some script she'd practiced in front of a mirror. Instead, she chose the easiest hiding place for someone who had built a world of lies, behind a screen. The first email came a week after the dinner with her family. Long rambling. More performance than confession. She wrote about how things had gotten confused. How she never meant for it to go this far. How she thought he had emotionally checked out long before she did. As if she could rationalize betrayal by rewriting the timeline. Matt read it once, then deleted it. She followed up a few days later with another message, shorter, more desperate. She used words like mistake and healing and second chance. But there was still no real ownership. Just attempts at emotional math, subtract this mistake, divide it by stress, multiply it by personal growth. He didn't reply. Not out of bitterness. But because he realized something Brittany had never understood, not everyone who leaves deserves to be invited back. Especially not the ones who burned the bridge behind them and then acted surprised when the road no longer existed. He changed the locks. Quietly. No announcement, no warning. Just a locksmith appointment on a Tuesday morning, and a calm sense of finality when he watched the old keys drop into the trash can. The divorce papers were filed shortly after. He handled it the same way he handled everything else, with quiet precision. No theatrics, no vindictive demands. Just facts, signatures, deadlines. He checked every box, dotted every I, crossed every T. She never contested. Maybe she knew better by then. Word traveled, of course. Not directly from him, but through the usual whispers. Her gym closed within a month, officially due to a restructuring decision, but unofficially, everyone knew the drama had tanked its reputation. A few bad reviews, a leaked complaint, and a viral thread later, the place emptied out like someone had pulled the fire alarm. Tyler moved states. Some said he went back to Florida. Others said he was managing a new gym somewhere in Arizona. Either way, he disappeared from Brittany's life almost as quickly as he'd entered it. Whatever they had crumbled under the weight of the truth once it lost its illusion. Brittany's social media went dark. No more morning affirmations. No filtered beach photos. No meal prep content or post-yoga selfies. It was as if she'd lost her audience and decided the show wasn't worth continuing. Matt didn't celebrate her downfall. It didn't give him joy. But there was a certain peace in knowing he hadn't had to lift a hand to make it happen. He just stopped protecting her from the consequences she had so skillfully delayed. As for him, he took time. Not in some dramatic, soul-searching way. Just slowly, one habit at a time. He started hiking again. At first alone, early in the mornings before the world felt crowded. He liked the quiet. The sound of dirt crunching under boots. The way the sunlight filtered through the trees. There was something honest about nature, it didn't pretend to be anything it wasn't. Eventually, he joined a local hiking group. Nothing serious, just weekend meetups with strangers who loved being outside more than being online. They didn't ask about Brittany. Or his marriage. Or what he did for work. They just walked, talked about the trail, passed granola bars around, and moved forward. He wasn't looking for anyone. He wasn't on some mission to fill the space she left behind. But peace found him anyway, in the rhythm of steps, in the sound of wind moving through leaves, in the way his chest didn't tighten every time his phone buzzed. Some days, he'd pass by a gym and feel a flicker of something bitter. Not rage, just a shadow. A reminder of what used to be. But it never lasted. The feeling passed, like a gust of wind that's gone before you can even brace against it. He started sleeping better. He stopped checking her profiles, even when curiosity nudged him late at night. He deleted old photos, not all at once, but over time. Like pruning a garden, cutting away what no longer grew. Life became lighter. There were moments, of course, small echoes of the past. Like hearing a song they used to dance to in the kitchen. Or spotting a car that looked just like hers at a stoplight. But even those moments softened with time. They lost their sting. Became chapters instead of open wounds. Matt didn't pretend he wasn't changed. He was. Betrayal rewrites something in a person's foundation. But it also carves space for something new, clarity, resilience, a quiet confidence that you can survive what once felt impossible. Because that's the thing about betrayal. Once you survive it, once you claw your way through the disbelief and the heartbreak and the silence, you come out on the other side bulletproof. Not hardened, not cold. Just, aware. Less willing to compromise your peace for someone else's chaos. He never heard from Brittany again after that last email. Maybe she finally understood that not everything broken deserves to be fixed. Some things are meant to be left in the past, as cautionary tales. Matt kept walking forward. And with every step, the weight she left behind felt lighter.